Welcome to Secretly Sporty. I'm your host, Sebastian Langdell, and I'm joined here with my co-creator, Austin Ratliff. How's it going, Austin?
I'm doing all right. I am recovering from a little flirtation with heat exhaustion that I had this weekend. Yeah. Playing doubles in tennis can be difficult because you have to coordinate for people's schedules. It just so happened that the only time all of us could play was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was definitely over 90 degrees. It was, an indication that maybe we were making a poor choice when there was literally nobody else playing tennis on 8 tennis courts.
Yeah.
And by the end, I was feeling a little nauseous, a little lightheaded. My face was bright red. So, no losses, only lessons. And so I have corrected, and my next tennis match is happening at 6:30 in the morning.
You could go earlier, too. Maybe like 4:30 or something. Be nice and cool.
Maybe I'll see if I can get 4 people to agree to play at 4:30 in the morning. I'll let you know how that goes. How are you doing? You are just back from a trip.
Yeah, it took a wee trip. I've been doing some traveling of late and, trying to squeeze in runs where I can. As I got back into it, actually, I was in Western Mass visiting my father-in-law out there in what is, bear country. And I'm always a little nervous about taking runs around there because I don't want to run into a bear.
You don't? I don't understand that.
Yeah, you just court danger at every turn.
Yeah, that's me. That's my middle name.
So yeah, no bears that run, but maybe a couple hours later, we're just hanging out in his backyard, and a big lumbering black bear just decided to make his way through and sniff at every tree, and we got inside real quick.
Good call. I feel like today's guest, Ben Ratliff, might enjoy running in bear country because it would add a sort of unpredictable or chaotic element to the run, which is something that he embraces.
Yeah. Ben Ratliff is the author of 5 books, including several books on jazz. He was a music writer for the New York Times for 20 years. And his most recent book, Run the Song, Writing About Running About Listening, from last year was longlisted for the National Book Award in Nonfiction. And it's about listening to music while running. And he tells us that he does kind of seek out, both through the music and through the act of running itself, a certain chaos.
Yeah, and he talked about how music is about motion. And so running while listening to music frees up thoughts that he wouldn't otherwise feel like he might have.
Yeah. He's also very much not about training for a race. He doesn't track his runs. He's doing it for the experience of running.
Yeah. He runs however long he has time for and feels up to and comes home, and that's it. That's the run. As we know, I get very focused on my results in tennis and my rankings, and I thought this was actually a really refreshing approach to an activity of just do it how it feels, and that's enough.
Yeah, should we get into it?
Let's get into it.
Here is Ben Ratliff. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
We like to start by asking about your most recent workout. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did and how it went?
I go to Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx as often as possible. And I went today, and I mean, there's many routes that go in and around it or touch on the park in some way. I went on a route, I don't know, maybe 5-6 miles that I've done thousands of times, and it's still great. I felt sort of open and free and liberated.
Can you kind of give us a little insight into what a week of running looks like to you?
Well, I tell myself that I run every day, but of course I don't actually run every day. Sometimes I'll skip 1, sometimes I'll skip 2. I tend to go according to how much time I feel that I have each day and how I feel. I don't time myself and I don't measure myself. And I have really almost negative interest in using any kind of data to help me understand what I'm doing as I run. I don't think it's a bad thing for people who do use it. This is just what seems right for me. I know that I'll never be a great runner, and I know that I'll never be a greatly accomplished runner. I have friends who are marathoners, and I understand the pride that they take in their accomplishments. One of my friends just ran her 20th New York City Marathon, and I thought, how great that must be. And to know that you've done it, what a feeling of satisfaction. I think I just want to sort of begin at the beginning every single morning.
Yeah.
I want to have a sense that I don't exactly know what I'm doing, that I'm continually figuring out what it is that I'm doing, and that if I want to run longer, I will. If I want to run shorter, I will. If I want to change directions at the last second, I will. Like, that's what running really means to me, is sort of anarchy.
I love the part in Run the Song when you talk about wanting to run like a Mal Waldron kind of piano solo, which is that kind of controlled anarchy or just like joy.
One of the reasons I love Mal Waldron so much is that he just kept going. He made hundreds of records. He just seemed to have this inexhaustible well, and he repeated himself a lot, but not in a way that felt like a failure. The ways in which he was repetitive, actually quite the opposite, seemed to suggest hope or possibility of a future of just continuing to go. And sometimes his solos don't really seem to have a point. It's not like they're oriented around a neat narrative. And sometimes as a listener, you're like, what are you doing? But that's exactly where I want to be, is the point of, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. What did you listen to this morning when you were running? Did you listen to music?
I did. I listened to 2 newish records that I have only heard a tiny bit of and wanted to hear more. One is the recent record by the rapper Ken Carson called More Chaos. And the other is Isabel Faust, violinist, has a new recording of Telemann violin concertos. And I set those records up together in a playlist and hit shuffle. So you'd hear a bunch of Telemann and then Ken Carson.
Oh, that's great.
The nice thing about putting together music that, at least from a distance, would seem to be very, very far apart in tradition is that, just like any 2 things that are put close to each other, you immediately begin to figure out what they have in common. I mean, you can't help yourself.
What are the similarities?
Well, Telemann is not like mind-bogglingly genius pattern-wise like, say, Bach. You kind of always know where he's going, and he lands in the expected places. Like, it's not that deep, but everything he writes has such beautiful intention. Likewise, Ken Carson's songs are really simple. I mean, a lot of them are really just one chord. Like, it's this new era of hip-hop that's like simple, 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 simple structure-wise, except this sonically, it's full of, I don't know, all these kind of twinkly sounds and kind of glass-breaking sounds, and it sounds almost alien. But a lot of these sounds that give the music texture and make it distinct are kind of like very bright. I get that also from the harpsichord, the brightness and crunchiness and crackliness of the harpsichord and the Telemann concertos. They seem to fit together.
And did you kind of intuit that going in?
No, not at all. But something about being on the move, something about what you're doing when you're running, which is you're just flinging yourself forward, for me, allows me to have thoughts about music that I guess I would never allow myself. Kind of reckless thoughts. So, yeah, I mean, this sort of feeds into the very beginnings of writing this book, is like, what is it that running and music have in common? Why did this idea occur to me in the first place?
Yeah.
And I think it's because I came to understand at a certain point that what I value most in music is its quality of motion. And to try to understand that quality of motion somehow. And how best to understand it? Well, through the body is a pretty good way to understand it. How to do that? Well, by moving. You could certainly do it by dancing, and plenty of people do. But I started to think, I don't know, though. Music just keeps going, 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 typically. Even if it's an extremely slow song, even if it appears not to be moving at all, the way it inhabits time. Much of the music that I like to listen to is music that conceivably could go on forever, to just keep on cycling, repeating, changing, altering. And I'm talking partly about jazz or certain kinds of Afro-Latin music or certain kinds of dance music, but it doesn't really matter. I can think of Beatles songs that conceivably could go on forever, to take an example of like the standard of pop music. And I kind of like that about running too. When you're inside a run and you're feeling your best, and maybe you've found the runner's high, or maybe, you've made your way to some great moment of realization, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You kind of feel that, yeah, perhaps this could just keep going. If you can somehow write about the motion of music and also write about the motion of your own body through an atmosphere, then maybe you could be unlocking something, or you could be writing about music in a new way.
It seems like one book you're grappling with throughout is Murakami's what I talk about when I talk about running. He ran a jazz club, right, at one point in his life. But when he gets to talking about running, he's mostly talking about kind of 4/4 time and what might be thought of as kind of more traditional classic rock songs and that type of thing. Whereas you're grappling with a huge spectrum of music, everything from jazz to classical to Sade to Fred Astaire. Can you speak a little bit about your relationship to that book and the kind of push and pull there?
Yeah, I mean, I really love Murakami's book, and I love how odd it is and how bumpy it is. I even love it for some of its deficiencies or, things that I wish he did differently. He has this sort of signature of suggesting a really enormous and fascinating thought and then just kind of like leaving it and shrugging his shoulders and going, well, I don't know. I don't really know what I mean. And you're like, come on, do it. Keep going. But he won't. And that's just what he does. He knows more about music than I ever will, or certain kinds of music anyway. He has a kind of encyclopedic mind. But I don't think he wants to use running to kind of turn his thinking upside down about music. He might use running for other purposes. I mean, he's a very serious, like long form writer in a way that I have never been. He writes long novels. It could be that running for him is much more to do with creating stamina or whatever it takes for him to get to the end of these long books that he writes. Yep. What he says about thinking while running is also curious to me because he says that he runs to acquire a void and that he feels best when he's running, in that void. Often I feel that I'm exactly the opposite. I run to make the world more chaotic and complicated in a way that will surprise me.
Does it feel like you're pushing back against boredom?
It could be boredom. It could be just kind of like the idea of defamiliarization. I know this neighborhood that I live in. I've walked these streets over and over. I know that traffic sign. I know that tree over there. Nothing about them will surprise me. But if you do something to yourself, if you somehow alter your angle of perception, then they will look different to you. That's what I want all the time. I mean, that's what I want as a listener for sure.
Yeah.
So that I can write about music in a way that isn't typical, codified, boring, whatever. I mean, I want things to seem new and interesting. It gives me a reason to look forward to the future and have new thoughts to consider.
You're putting the pieces together in my head for why this certain album makes for good running music for me. It's this album by Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band called New Threats from the Soul. And he tends to write long songs. It's not unusual for them to go 10 minutes or longer. And I've heard him say that it's often because it's so hard for him to find a melody that he likes, that when he finds one that he likes, he just wants to stay in the song.
Right.
I was thinking about him also because you write in your book about listening to bands in a live context. And I went to see him in this tiny club in Austin recently, and the energy they had and the way that they were kind of interacting with the crowd, it was completely different from the album.
As a consequence of the particular job that I did for so long, which involved a lot of, reviewing live performances, I'm geared toward an understanding of music that is essentially like something that happens live in a room in front of people. And for me, running always returns me to that place. It's like, it doesn't matter what I'm listening to, running makes me hear the live version of it. One of the weird things for me about running to certain kinds of really, really new music, sometimes it's like the tradition that is now called hyperpop, or people like Jane Remover, or certain new kinds of hip hop that sounds like super compressed. It's almost like this music was not created out loud in a room and will never be played out loud in a room. Like it's entirely made within the hard drive and it will only be listened to through earphones. So like it doesn't really exist as an entity that is out there in physical physical space.
Right.
I admire a lot of this music, and I'm baffled by it in productive ways, and I find it really hard to run with.
Yeah, I grew up in LA going to a lot of concerts in, Hollywood and downtown and whatnot. And I always needed the physicality of it. I never wanted to be, at a giant concert far away from the stage. I always wanted to be general admission, as close to the stage as possible. So I feel like you're actually there, because otherwise it can feel like you're just listening to a recording. I went to a Rolling Stones show when I was young, and we were like total nosebleed seats, and might as well have just been listening to a recording,
Yeah.
I wanted the opposite of that.
Yeah, and the Stones in particular, I remember the last Stones concert that I saw, which was 15 years ago or something, but they kept playing these songs and then showing images of the records that they came from on a giant screen. It was almost like what we were doing was we were celebrating copyrights.
Yeah.
Like we were just really kind of far away from the like, this is here, this is now.
And that's why people get into mosh pits too.
Totally. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, hardcore shows in the early 80s were really my first understanding of what music could do, how it made people react. I mean, my God, it was like the fastest, loudest music I had ever imagined, and it sent people flying through the air. And it just moved, it made them convulse. Incredible.
Can you speak a little bit about how you first got into running?
I was a swimmer in high school, and I thought that was really the only thing that I was good at or interested in. I had to do some running on various teams, and I always hated it. It felt painful, punishment, really. Just had no interest. Also, my brother was a runner, and you always have to be different from a sibling. So I thought that could be his thing, but it wouldn't be mine. But it wasn't until I was in my 40s that a friend of mine just suggested that we go running one day. He lives in Maine. And it was just like, we could have been doing anything. It could have been like, let's go shoot BB guns, or, let's go play ping pong or whatever. It was just like, truly just like something to do. I didn't like it per se, but I just had a feeling that, okay, I may not love this today, but it'd be interesting to see how it feels tomorrow. I don't know why. It was just when your window is open for something, it's just, that's the right time for you. I was so interested by the fact that various hard parts of it just started to fall away after a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And every time one of the hard parts fell away, I would think, wow, that's interesting. Until finally I became to depend on it, because I was going through a really hard moment of leaving my job and trying to figure out whether I was making a terrible mistake. And running really helped me figure it out and reduce the fear, really. And like when you're running, you're always just flying into the future.
Was that when you decided to leave the New York Times and transition towards a mixture of being able to teach and write?
Yeah, that was it. It was a feeling of like real gratitude toward this job that I'd had for a long time, and that had really taught me so much, how to write and how to think, and really in many ways how to be a functioning adult. But, I began to think that it had run its course, and I didn't want to become stagnant. And also, actually, and this would be more to the point, the terms of criticism and the practice of it, and I don't know, what people wanted from it, both readers and my editors, really had changed across the span of 20 years. And I wasn't sure that I was so much in tune with the new way anymore. And I felt that it might actually be painful to stay. So it's like figuring out a way to say goodbye to something that I really loved and to leave something elegantly. It was around that time that there's a really great critic who wrote a lot about literature and dance named Joan Acocella. She died not too long ago. She said something like, nobody ever regrets leaving a marriage or a job. I was like, really? Is that true? I've never heard that before. And who knows if it's true? I don't know. But she said it with such finality that I thought, oh, okay, so I guess I won't regret it.
What was it about running, do you think, that really helped you through that moment of self-questioning and transition?
Running helps you trust yourself. It helps you know yourself, you know?
Mm.
I mean, I think that that's still something that I feel when I run every day is I'm doing it in order to figure out how I feel.
Mm.
You are, as Murakami would probably think, you're building stamina. You're getting stronger. So you're able to go further and further. You're able to see more and more things. If you enter different neighborhoods, you expand, you become bigger. And that's just probably a better way to face a really tricky juncture in your life.
Mm. Can you think of a time that, like, an especially euphoric memory connected to running?
I want to go directly to running in places that I found physically beautiful in sort of typical ways, and places that were unfamiliar to me. Like I remember running once in Santa Cruz near the water. Last summer, I ran in Kyoto along the banks of the river that goes right through the city. But I think the more truthful answer would be an experience of running here in my own city, maybe even in my own neighborhood, when I had reached a moment of, wow, I'm actually seeing these very familiar things differently. And I find myself interested in mundane realities. And you begin to see what, to a certain way of thinking, is a very unlikable place or a sad place as a completely magical place through making sense of it as a runner. To me, that's euphoria. I have a question for you, Sebastian. Do you worry about a time when you can no longer run?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I don't worry a ton about that right now, but I did actually maybe that's just because I went through a period where I wasn't really able to run much. I had a foot injury that kind of took me out of the game where running's concerned for a year or maybe more than a year. And like you, I was a swimmer in high school. I transitioned back to swimming for a while, and I thought, okay, that's the middle age to older age cardio is swimming. And just my foot started to feel better after resting it for a while. And then I also have a good PT person, and it's been a new life in running. So I think I'm kind of in this new life phase and currently not too worried, even though I know that that moment may come eventually. How about you? Do you worry about that?
Sometimes, just because I depend on it so much to like solve all problems, really. I just believe in it as one would believe in a religion. But, you know, I'm 57 and won't be able to do this forever.
You know, in the same way that the song can be many different things, right? I think your running in particular, can be many different things.
Yeah.
So my grandfather-in-law, my wife's grandfather, he just turned 98. He did the New York Marathon, I don't know how many times. You know, he was running it through his 60s and 70s, maybe even into his 80s. By the end, you know, he was just a very slow jog, as you can imagine. He would pull me aside and tell me, you know, I have people who are running the marathon alongside me. They were walkers, and they were walking faster than I was running. But he was still going. And, you know, he had a fall at one point, and then he would still go out for his daily run, just wearing a bike helmet in case he fell again. But it was a religion to him, and he did it every day.
Good. Well, that gives me hope.
Okay, we have a lightning round for you that we like to end on. Cottage cheese or Greek yogurt?
Greek yogurt.
To eat or not to eat before a run?
Oh, to eat.
And do you have a favorite post-workout snack?
A banana with peanut butter on it.
My next question was peanut butter on a banana or a date?
Really? I've never even considered a date, but I don't like that idea at all. So it's banana.
Okay. Swim in the ocean or a pool?
Ocean.
Sauna or cold plunge?
Both.
And if you had to choose, run on a trail or on the street?
Well, trail. I just bought a pair of trail shoes, Norda. They're Canadian. I really love running with these, and I actually love it so much that I bought a second pair just to walk in.
Would you rather meet your artistic hero or your athletic hero?
Oh, artistic hero. No question.
Do you have someone in mind?
A musician that I particularly love right now and have never met, but would love the opportunity, is a Palestinian singer and oud player named Camelia Gibran. I've only been listening to her for, I don't know, 2-3 years. I hadn't heard about her before then, but I've seen her perform. I've listened to her records. She's the musician for me right now. And it's not just how good she is at singing and playing. It's an entire sensibility and incredible intelligence that's coming through.
Is there an album of hers that you would recommend?
Yes, I really like the most recent one that she did with it's just her and a French bass player named Sarah Murcia, and I believe it's called Yoqal, Yoqal.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great discussion, and I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise, Sebastian. It's been great.
Join us next time as we talk to author Michael Copperman about his new book, Seeking Kenny, how his experience as an elite high school wrestler continues to influence his approach to exercise, and what it was like growing up with an Aikido master as a father. See you then. Secretly Sporty was created and is produced by Sebastian Langdell and Austin Ratliff. It's hosted by me, Sebastian Langdell, edited by Austin Ratliff and Andy Rattinger, associate producer Andy Rattinger. Our theme music is composed by Catherine Joy, cover art by Ben Wiseman, represented by Illustration Division, Inc., interstitial music by Joaquin Horsley. This outro song you're listening to right now is Bach Cumbia by Joaquin Horsley. Special thanks to Liam Billingham. Please note that we are not medical professionals nor personal trainers. Not all exercises are suitable for everyone. Always consult a doctor before starting any new exercise routine or nutritional program. The views expressed in this show are those of the show's creators or the guests, and not those of any other entity or institution.